Welcome back to Painting and Decorating. Another quick video here for you, and this is about laying off and direction of painting, which is critical to getting a job looking perfect. When you walk into a room and a good decorator's done it, you really can tell the difference between somebody who knows how to lay off the paint correctly and which direction to lay off the paint in certain circumstances, because we all know how many times you've walked into a job and you've looked at the windowsill and someone's laid it off straight towards them instead of side to side, or you come across something else and they've just laid it off the wrong way and it just looks horrible. So I'll show you the technique using a brush of how to lay your paint off correctly and to minimise the brush marks in the actual paint, so you can get the smoothest finish. Now, before I start this, it's got to be said, laying off water-based paints and laying off oil-based paints are completely different. Especially with all these new modern water-based finish. Now, in some circumstances, rooms are that hot, you don't have time to actually lay the paint off correctly as you're painting. Some people say they use rollers or they wet the surface and things like that. But at the end of the day, it is just so difficult to get the finish looking good with a water-based finish. Oil, no problem. All day long you just get a cracking finish with it. And that's because, in fact, I'll show you at the end of the video why. Now, I'm using water-based emulsion here for this demonstration. Now, it doesn't matter that it's not oil, because you'll get the same principle. Now, I'll talk about water-based first of all. You have to paint extremely fast with water-based paint. Now, sometimes, you know, with oil paint, you can start going one direction and then lay off in another direction. Now, this water-based paint dries that fast, sometimes you don't even have time to do that because it starts dragging or pulling. So you're better literally just painting straight like that. And sometimes you literally have no time to get it on. And you've just got to do that and leave it. Otherwise you'll start putting more marks in it. Now, when it comes to oil-based paint, you can actually lay it on how you want and then go over it in another direction and then come back and then go back. Now, and that's because it's oil and you have what we call open time, which means it takes longer to dry, so you have longer to play about with the paint so you can get it on and lay it off nicely. The open time on water-based paint is just not enough. Now, the other thing that's already dragging because it's drying. A lot of people have said to me, get your paint on, what are you doing messing about with it like that? Now, what they can't see is what I can see. And painting isn't just about putting your paint on and getting the colour covered. It's visual to what you're looking at with the brush marks, especially on a flat surface. Now, getting them brush marks right is the critical stage to making your job look crisp at the end. So doesn't matter what you're painting, whether you're putting emulsion on the walls or whether you're painting the trim, you've always got to make sure your last movements are in the right direction and you've not pulled the brush off at the wrong points, or you've not scrubbed it somewhere. So let's just, if I was cutting in down here and then I've got to go around this hinge, when you put your paint on and then you come down, sometimes you might make different marks there, but then you've got to go back and tidy them up, make sure they're all right, and then just one straight movement past it like that. Also, trying to get your lines so they're not wavy, they're all nice and straight, which is really difficult. It sounds easy, but it's not. And when it dries, it just looks so much better. Windowsills, like I say, it's all about shutting up the lines, letting your paint sit back, and it pulls the lines together and it makes for a smoother finish. So when you're actually painting them, if you just really rough, just go rah and just leave it like that, you've got loads of big lines and the fat ridges. So what you're better off doing is spreading it out a little bit more and finally going over. So you're only just touching it, and you can do this a few times. And the finer you get them lines, when it dries, you get a better finish. So that's the technique of how to lay off. And let's just have a look at this other piece of trim. So if I was painting this and you're on a job, you've got two edges. Now when you paint one edge, it sometimes goes round onto the other edge. So when you're painting that edge, that one will go round onto the other edge. And if you're not careful, and you look back, that edge is all marked now. So then you've got to go back onto that one and just finally bring it in. So then you've not really gone round onto that edge. And same just down there. And then that leaves it nice and neat. No fat edges. So you've always got to be conscious of how you're leaving your paint. Don't just think you can scrub it on and walk away. You've got to look at it, see that there's no lines, big fat lines left in it, and then look at other edges and make sure you've not pulled the paint across on another edge, and then lay it off nice and straight. And that way your jobs will look absolutely mint. So just before I was on about the difference between water and oil. Let's just do a quick demonstration. Just a quick test. Oil. Pour some of that. Just watch how that behaves. Now this is a bit of water. So it's just clinging and it's upright. It's not settled back and flowed out. And it's actually a different shape as well. That's just stayed more of a circular shape, whereas that, because of the tension in the water, because it's always pulling, it's made a different shape. Now it's important because when you're laying your paint off in lines, the oil tends to sit back and pull. It actually pulls together on itself, whereas the water, that just sits, doesn't really do anything, doesn't sit back the same. It's not even changed shape, that it's just sat there with the tension of the water, where the oil, it's slowly still creeping out, and that would spread quite far. So that's why water-based finish, you can have a lot of trouble in trying to get it looking right. And not only that, don't know if the camera can pick it up, how fat is that compared to that, and that's that causes a lot of problems. That does. Door casings and on doors, the amount of the build up of the water-based paint. Windows as well, when you come to shut your windows, you can have problems. So again, that's why I don't really like the water-based finish. If I can go for oil, I will.